Hello, everyone. I'm Stephen Cicerelli. I am a professor of English and sometimes philosophy. Uh, I'm not a mathematician, so the things we're going to be talking about today are not my expertise, though I am someone who has been really interested in the topic, and I've been researching it since about 2013. I've been invested in Bitcoin since about 2013, though this is by no means financial advice. Um, it is one person's sort of breakdown or description of a topic that he finds really interesting. The genesis for this project is my my wife had asked me, or rather, she didn't ask me. Uh, she had been overhearing me constantly talking about Bitcoin, and wanted to know what the heck this whole thing was about. Um, and I told her I would explain it to her, and she, rolled her eyes. Uh, and but then she said, "Well, if you make a PowerPoint, if you make some sort of presentation, uh, I'll sit through it." So, me being the dedicated person that I am, I made a PowerPoint, and this is the PowerPoint that I presented to her. It is you could say like a Bitcoin 101, very basic. There's a lot of stuff I'm going to be leaving out. I will probably do future videos on other topics. If people find this helpful, um, you know, like the video, let me know that it's been useful. That will obviously motivate me to want to keep doing it more. Um, if you find it useful, let me know. If you find that some of the examples, metaphors that I'm using are confused things, also let me know. If you're somebody who's not a Bitcoin beginner, somebody who is more advanced, and some of the things I'm saying are technically need some technical improvement, also let me know that. I'm very much open to learning that. Um, like I said, I'm not a mathematician, I'm not a computer scientist, but I am somebody uh, who's been interested in this technology since about 2013 when I first heard of it. Um, so what I'm going to be talking about is Bitcoin and basically how it works, why it works, uh, and I don't want to spend more than about a half an hour on this. So to define what Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer method for transmitting value on the internet. Now, there are a couple of points of that definition, and the definition is standardly accepted, mostly accepted. It's my sort of take on things, but pretty standard definition for what we're talking about. And there are a couple of pieces of it that are important. One is the peer-to-peer aspect of it. So when I say that Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer method for transmitting value, what I'm saying is that there are no intermediaries. So just like I can transmit cash to somebody in a peer-to-peer manner, I can meet them in an alley or meet them wherever and transmit cash to them. There's no one in between who's mediating that transaction. I'm giving the person the dollars, they're receiving the cash, and they're receiving the cash. Um, so when I say Bitcoin is peer-to-peer, there are no intermediaries. There is no clearinghouse in between that needs to approve the transaction for the transaction to go through. So no intermediaries. Another aspect of it being peer-to-peer is that it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The transmission, there are no breaks for holidays. It doesn't stop, basically. Um, this is powerful because connected to this is also the fact that it's censorship resistant. If there's no intermediaries, there's no one in the middle who can block my transaction or stop my transaction from happening. Um, regardless of what our positions have been on recent events in the public eye, with regards to Twitter, Robinhood, all of these companies that are in the middle that are mediating communication in the case of Twitter or trading in the case of Robinhood. When you have an intermediary, you also have censorship, the possibility for censoring. However justified that censoring might be, or whatever sort of justifications are used to explain that censorship, it's still censorship nonetheless. And so with Bitcoin, we don't have that. There is no intermediary, so there is no censorship essentially. It's borderless. These transactions can happen across country. They can happen internationally. There's no limit to where these transactions can happen. As far as I know, there are one Bitcoin company I think has a satellite in space, so you might even be able to send. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you might even be able to send Bitcoin transactions in space. Inexpensive. Unlike a bank that might charge you for a wire or other sorts of fees for transmitting, especially for international payments, remittances if you're using something like Western Union to send money, which charge a hefty premium usually. Bitcoin is relatively inexpensive, even now at time of recording this, when the Bitcoin network is pretty crammed with transactions. The transaction fees are only, for low priority transactions, are only about under $1. So inexpensive, and that's under $1 for sending. You could send thousands and thousands of dollars worth of value, and it's relatively cheap. And typically transactions will clear in about 10 minutes. We can talk about why the figure of 10 minutes in another video, but typically about 10 minutes. Okay, so one part of that definition of Bitcoin as a peer-to-peer method for transmitting value is the peer-to-peer aspect, which we just talked about. The other aspect is the value part. So when we say that we're transmitting value online, what exactly are we transmitting that has value? Okay, so if you've been following the news following the headlines about Bitcoin, you see that the price is going up. It goes down very steeply, sometimes goes up very steeply. So why does it have value in the first place? Okay, this question, why does Bitcoin have value? It implicit in the question is sort of a conflation of two ways of using the term Bitcoin. Lots of other cryptocurrency projects, of which Bitcoin is one of them, they generally have a different term for their network versus the unit of account on that network. Bitcoin being the first does not have that sort of nice, neat linguistic separation there. So when someone says, why does Bitcoin have value? Usually what they're asking you is, why does the unit of account have value? And the answer to that is, the unit itself is kind of arbitrary. In much the same way that other kinds of units of account in the past have been arbitrary. Cultures have used salt, seashells, all kinds of things as units of account. And so that in and of itself doesn't have value. What I would argue that what gives Bitcoin the unit of account value is Bitcoin the network. Now we'll talk much more. I will talk much more about the network in other videos, but to just give you an idea of why the Bitcoin network has value, you have to understand why other networks give their units of account value. For example, like the dollar, let's say, it exists within a network, which is the United States, and that network has the power of a government backing it. It has rules and regulations that uphold that network, and that gives the unit of account value. If we started to lose trust in that network, in the U.S. government, in the rules and regulations, that unit of account, that dollar, would still be $1, but it would lose its purchasing power. It would lose its value relative to other things because the network itself is no longer trusted. So why do people put trust and put value in the Bitcoin network? Well, a couple of things. One is that the Bitcoin network is what's known as a decentralized network. More correctly, it's a distributed network, meaning that there is no central hub that controls what goes on the network. So as long as you have the ability to run certain software on certain hardware, you can be somebody who contributes to the Bitcoin network. You don't need anybody's permission. All you need is the money and the electricity to invest some capital in some of the machinery you're seeing on your screen there. And you could be someone who participates in the Bitcoin network. And so not having a central hub is a really, really good feature for security. We could see why that's the case. Just in recent years, there have been all kinds of hacks of major companies like Home Depot. I think Target was another one that was subject to hacks, and people's credit card information was compromised. And this is what happens when you have a bunch of valuable information sitting in one central hub. There is now one place to attack, and there's one attack vector you can go after, and there's a honeypot of information just sitting there ready for people to take and use. But when you have a distributed network, that network, there is no central place to attack. So you have as many places to attack as you have users on the network, or people who are maintaining that network, which is a lot of people. So that makes attacking much harder when you have a distributed network. What's also valuable about, so one aspect is that it's distributed and it doesn't have central. The term that Bitcoin people like to use is there are no central points of failure. There is no central point that you could attack. The other aspect of the Bitcoin network that's important. There are others, and in another video, if you'd like me to do another video, I can do another video where we can talk about the blockchain technology and why that is a useful innovation. I didn't get into that when I was doing the presentation for my wife. All I told her was that the genius of blockchain technology is that it has solved the problem of how do I have a digital unit, whether it's a unit of music, a unit of account, a unit of anything. How do I have a digital unit of something that transmits like something digital, instantaneous, over the internet, light speed? How do I have something like that that also can't be copied and forged? I mean, if you've been around for a while and you've seen the evolution of music from CDs to MP3s, that the music industry had a really hard time with. Okay, we now have our music in digital format, and we could transmit it super easily, and we could have people sharing MP3s with each other. Well, how do we make sure that people aren't just copying our music a million times and sending it to everybody else? And that was a big problem that took a while for iTunes and other people to solve. But for a while, it was a big problem. How do we have this convenient mode for sending digital data, but also not be able to copy it? And that's one big innovation of the Bitcoin. Another big innovation of the Bitcoin network is that we can have digital information that is also scarce and it can't be copied. Also, and like I said, that's a topic for another video, and I can talk about why this blockchain technology that undergirds the Bitcoin network, why that doesn't allow for copying. Lastly, for why the Bitcoin network is valuable and why we should therefore value the unit of account that exists on that network is that there is lots and lots of computing power behind this network. It is the most secure network in existence by far. There are more, as I have here on the slide, there's more computing power in the Bitcoin network than the top 500 supercomputers on Earth combined. And as far as I understand, it's not even close. The Bitcoin network, just for like, pure trivia, the Bitcoin network is doing 80 quintillion computations per second. I think you've got trillion, then quadrillion, then quintillion. This is a number that's sort of unfathomable. But you've got a lot of computing power behind the Bitcoin network. By far the most of any cryptocurrency, and like I said, the most secure of any network that known to man, really. Okay, so we were saying before about the unit of account that lives on the Bitcoin network. So how do I store this unit of account? What do I do with this unit of account? Well, this unit of account, Bitcoins, plural, they're stored in what are called digital wallets. The wallet isn't exactly a great analogy for it, but think of a digital wallet like your very own bank account. Only you're the bank manager. So those funds are there. You can observe them. You can move them. That's in most Bitcoin wallets. I'll explain other kinds of Bitcoin wallets at the end. But in Bitcoin, as it was designed, in a digital wallet, you are the bank manager. You get to decide when you move that money, how much of that money you move, to whom you send that money. That wallet is fully under your control, fully under your custody. Just like a bank account or a credit card account, there is certain sensitive information stored within that Bitcoin wallet. And we'll get into what a wallet actually looks like in a second. But there's certain sensitive information that is stored in that Bitcoin wallet that allows you to access the money within, much like your bank account. If you know your routing number and your bank number, you can move funds. If you know your credit card number, the expiration date, etc., you can move funds as well. So there's certain sensitive information in a Bitcoin wallet that allows you access to the funds therein. So if the Bitcoin wallet is exactly like my bank, then what's the big difference? What's the big innovation here? Why do I need Bitcoin if my bank is essentially the same thing, and this is really just more of the same thing? If this is really just recreating the wheel here, why do I need this? Okay, well, Bitcoin wallets are not. In some ways they're like a bank account, but in other ways they're very different. So what I have on screen here is sort of a side-by-side comparison of what we have here. You've got your Bitcoin wallet on the bottom. You've got your standard debit credit card on top. And you'll notice that with the Bitcoin wallet, there are two sets of numbers, not just one. This is important. The Bitcoin uses what's called public key cryptography, which is that you have one number that is sensitive that allows you to spend money, and you have another number that is non-sensitive that allows you to receive money. They're not the same number, obviously, as you can see here on screen. With a credit card, it is the same number. The number that identifies your account, in this case, 5523, whatever, the number that identifies your account and allows you to receive funds is also the number that allows you to spend those funds. Which, when you think about it, is just a bad design. This is a number that we are flashing around to people at a grocery checkout. We leave our wallets in coat checks and things. So this sensitive number that allows us to spend funds is constantly on display for people to look at, cameras, etc., to look at. And it's just sort of a gold mine for people who are looking to hack you or steal your identity. Don't even need to go into all the sort of identity theft associated with credit cards. So a bad technical design, having the number that identifies the account also be the number that allows you to spend from that account. What a Bitcoin wallet is you have the public key, which is also called allows you to receive funds. The public key is public, meaning that it can be shared. You can take that number and you could send it in an email, you can send it in a text. All that number does is identify for somebody, where can I send money to? Okay? That public key does not allow people to extract any money from the account, only to send money to the account. And you can see the QR code there. The QR code is just the crazy pattern there is just a visual representation of that string of numbers in lowercase and uppercase letters. So public key, you can show it anywhere, you can flash it around anywhere. There are people who have their public keys in all kinds of places, right? So you could scan it on a device, tattoo it on yourself. Not something I would do, but nonetheless, you've got people who do that. The public key is not anything that you need to worry about sharing. The private key, on the other hand, this is the number that allows you to spend the money. I kind of lay this out in the next slide, but the private key is what allows you to spend the money. Like I said, the QR is the visual representation of that private key. This is the one that you do not want to share with anyone. This is the one that you want to keep to yourself. Most of the wallets that you download will keep these private keys hidden. They're not things you can view in the app. All you can usually view in these wallet apps, which I'll talk about later. All you can usually view in these apps is the public key. The private key is almost always hidden, and for good reason. You don't want anybody walking by you on your phone while you're sending a transaction, and now they have that key that they can essentially access whatever money's in there. Okay, so you could see how this is different from our card here, which is, way less secure in terms of how much we're flashing that number around on the credit card, right? So if my private key is that long string of numbers and letters, which is longer than the public key, well, how are these two numbers related? How do I know that if I'm not not showing someone my public key, they might not be able to, why can't they figure out my private key? Okay, clearly those numbers are connected in some way. The private key allows you to spend the money that's held within the public key. So why is it the case that if I know the public key, I can't figure out the private key? Computers can do a lot of things now. Why can't they figure that out? Well, we're going to talk about that now. So unlike with a bank account where you've got your standard credit card with string of just regular numbers on it, that frankly, if you had a computer just guessing combinations over and over again, we'll eventually hit on some credit card numbers and be able to extract money out of those. So why is a Bitcoin address different? Well, or Bitcoin wallet, I should say. Why is a wallet different? Why is it more secure? Well, so you have these two numbers, the private key and the public key, they are related in some way, but they're related in such a way where knowing one of them, namely the public key, does not allow you access to the private key. And they're set up in that way on purpose, where it's very easy if you know the private key to figure out the public key, but not vice versa. Now, why is that the case? That's the case because Bitcoin and other sorts of encryption tools use what are called one-way functions. Again, I'm not a mathematician, but this is from my doing some of my research over the years. What happens with a one-way function is you input values into the function. Remember, a mathematical function, remember, is just sort of a high-level equation of sorts. You put values in, and then it spits values out on the other end. So what's happening with a one-way function is you take that private key and you put it through the one-way function, and out comes the public key. So when I say out comes the public key, on the other side of the equal sign, so to speak, you have the public key. So because the function is one way, though, it's easy for me to put that same private key into the one-way function, and it will always spit out that same public key. But now if I want to try to figure out what private key derived this public key. That would be a computation that would be impossible or incredibly difficult for a computer to do in any sort of reasonable time. The one-way function that, and I want to give you a little more of a concrete sense of why this is, and I'll give you a mathematical example of the way this works and a sort of a real-world example that you can sort of see why one-way functions are used for encryption. They're used for encryption or for concealing sensitive information because they are easy to compute one way, but not easy to compute the other way. And the one-way function that Bitcoin uses is what's called SHA-256. That's the one-way function that's used in Bitcoin for security. So just imagine a mathematical example of how these one-way functions work. And imagine you've got prime numbers. Okay, prime numbers, remember, are from math class. Prime numbers are numbers that have only they can only be divided by themselves in one. There are no other numbers that divide into them completely. Those are prime numbers. So I have a couple of them on the left. And a semi-prime is a number that can obviously be divided by one and itself, but also has the two prime numbers as its factors. So for example, the semi-prime 43,931 has the two factors 197 and 223. If you multiply those two together, you get the one on the right. And the calculator on my phone was able to take those prime numbers, multiply them together, and give me the semi-prime in under a second. Okay. The problem, though, is as these semi-primes get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, I'm talking 30 digits, 40 digits, 100 digits, 1,000 digits, 1 to the 20th digits. You've got not 1 to the 20th, but exponentially larger numbers. When they get really, really large, it's easy to figure out. It's easy to take two primes, multiply them together, and get a really, really, really big semi-prime. But if I take that same really, really big semi-prime and I tell a computer, figure out what two prime numbers had to be multiplied together to get this semi-prime, a computer will spin its wheels for a long time to figure that out. And so that's a simple multiplication function, right? We're not even talking about a more complicated equation that would be used in something like SHA-256. So just simple multiplication, taking two huge prime numbers, multiplying them together and getting a semi-prime, and then trying to reverse it will give a computer a lot of difficulty, a lot of hard time. A real-world example of a one-way function is next time you go to the paint store and you're mixing a specific color paint for your wall or whatever it is, you'll notice that there's a very specific formula that the store has or the paint company has to generate that specific color, specific shade of green. Certain values of this, certain values of that, and they can be sure that when they mix those same amounts of each of the colors, each of the pigments, it's going to come out with the same shade of green every time, and mix it up, and it's going to look this way. But if you come in with a can of paint that's already mixed, and you say to somebody who just started working at the store, and you don't know the name of the paint, you don't have any other information about it, figure out what exact ratios of this color to this color had to go into this, it would take a computer system a long time to figure that out, because it's easy to mix going in, but to unmix it and figure out exactly how much of each color paint was in that green, it's going to take a long time. And so that's what we mean by a one-way function. And obviously, a credit card does not have this. A credit card is simply a string of numbers. Okay. New tool can crack a credit card number in 6 seconds. I don't know how it does it, but it's the way it's working is just guessing credit card numbers over and over again. They know the numbers are going to have to be a certain length, and they just keep guessing them until they hit on them. But a Bitcoin wallet The private key associated with that, the private and public keys associated with that, are what are called they're 256-bit numbers, meaning that the number of in binary, so if in computer ones and zeros, 256 digits of 1 0, and there are 2 to the 256 possible combinations. So think about how many possible combinations that is just for one Bitcoin private key public key combination. Okay, that's I can't even read how long. I don't even know how to read that number. It's that long. I've heard that there are more Bitcoin wallet address Bitcoin wallet address possibilities than there are atoms in the universe. I don't know if that's true, but there are a lot of combinations just for one 256-bit number, and so to guess that private key from the public key is going to take a computer, from what I researched, 0.65 billion years just to crack one Bitcoin private key. That's a long time. And by the time you crack the thing, Bitcoin's not even going to be around, and computers will be, who knows what the future will be like at that point. So even though a computer will eventually figure it out, even though all the supercomputers on Earth will eventually figure it out, it takes so long that it's basically secure. We can essentially say it's impossible because it's not a reasonable time that it can be hacked. Okay, so that's why Bitcoin is more. That's why a Bitcoin address, and specifically the SHA-256 one-way function that Bitcoin uses, is more secure than just having a credit card number. I mean, the truth of the matter is that credit card numbers and credit card information online is encrypted as well. So I want to be fair to credit cards. But what we're talking about in terms of guessing credit card numbers, we're talking about just guessing random. We're not talking about breaking the encryption and figuring out what the credit card number is. We're talking about just guessing random credit card numbers. It's going to take much less time to just guess random credit cards and hit on an actual credit card number than it would with a 256-bit number that's run through that one-way function that we talked about. Okay. So how do I send a Bitcoin? I have the unit of account. I know that the unit of account lives on the Bitcoin network. How do I send one? I hear people are buying Bitcoins. I hear people are sending them. How do I do that? Okay, well, you need a couple of things. You need wallet software. So you need software that manages your public and private key for you. Okay, that wallet software can exist for your desktop, for your mobile, Android or iOS, Mac, Windows, all that. You can download them in the Play Store, App Store if you're doing mobile. So you need the wallet software. I can recommend a couple at the end of the video, and you need the recipient's public key. You need to know where you're sending the money to, where you're sending the Bitcoin units to, and remember that public key can be either in the form of those alphanumeric numbers, the alphanumeric string of characters, or the QR code. Okay, either one of those. Every wallet software that I know of, you can copy and paste that alphanumeric string of characters, or you can scan the QR code. The wallets come with built-in QR code scanners. And then you need access to the internet. And as long as you have those three things, you can send a Bitcoin transaction. Okay, we're not going to talk about what actually happens when you send a Bitcoin transaction. That's for another video. But all you need are those three things, and you could send a transaction. And this is what a wallet will look like, and we'll come back to the previous slide in a second. This is what a wallet will look like. I mean, it doesn't look not much different than a Venmo. My wife said the one difference is you can't send cool emojis in a Bitcoin wallet, and I was like, yeah, touche. Maybe someone's developing a wallet where you can send fun emojis like you can in Venmo, but it's pretty basic. Send, receive. You can see that the balance in this Bitcoin wallet is 2 Bitcoins. And that the person's received some, has sent some, and you can see all those transactions down there on the bottom. Okay, so just last point I want to make: there are 2 kinds of wallets, and when you are looking into getting a wallet, if you decide Bitcoin's for you, which, remember, not financial advice, but if you decide Bitcoin is something that you want to get, dip your feet in, then there are two kinds of wallets and two things to pay attention for. One is is the wallet custodial or is the wallet non-custodial? And I'm going to actually add a third kind of wallet here too, because there's actually, in recent months, companies have come out with other kinds of with another kind of wallet, like especially PayPal is an example, Robinhood the app, Square Cash app. There's a third kind of wallet there that's not on here, and I'll mention that. But a custodial wallet, just think of when you think of a custodial wallet, it's some third party is managing your public and private keys for you. So they are the ones. They could be a bank, they could be a third-party company. I include an example here, which is Coinbase. Coinbase is an exchange where you can buy and sell cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. But if you hold your cryptocurrency in their wallet, it is a wallet that they manage the private keys of. So you won't get to see the private key. You won't know what it is. Only they will know. Only they will have access to what that private key is, which means that technically the money is theirs. They have access to the private key. If they wanted to, they could send that money out. They won't for business reasons and legal reasons. But so if you're more comfortable with sort of a bank model, you like the idea of a bank being a custodian over your money. They're a place you can go to and rely on and talk to. There's somebody physical there. There's a customer service number you can call. Then a custodial wallet is what you'd probably be more comfortable with. You don't have to worry about losing passwords, any of these things. They are, you've got a company there that'll send you an email to reset your passwords if you lose them. Not a problem. Okay. With a non-custodial wallet, you have a little more power and control over your funds, over your private and public keys. That's why I put the sort of the Spider-Man picture there. With greater power comes great responsibility, and there's much more power in the non-custodial wallet. You manage your private keys. You get to decide when you want to send your money, to whom, and etc. But it's your responsibility to manage those keys. If you lose, you lose your phone and you have to re-download the app, you better remember certain backup information, backup info to regenerate that wallet. Because if you don't, that money is gone. There is, like I said, with the custodial wallet, there is no customer service number you can call to get that information back. So more power there, but you got to be a little more responsible. So if you're the kind of person who likes the technical aspect of it and wants it to be more hands-on, then non-custodial wallets for you. But just bear in mind, you've got to have things backed up and written down. An example of a good wallet that I use is Mycelium. It's a mobile app that you can download from the Google Play Store or the App Store. I think it's for both Android and iOS. And you manage your public keys and your private keys with that. What'll happen when you download that wallet is it'll tell you to write down 12 or 24 words, just random English words, and those random English words will be the backup in case you lose your phone, in case you need to re-download the app for some reason. It'll bring back your private key for you. But if you lose those 12 words, the money's gone. Okay, so I said there's a third kind of wallet to add to this list, and that is I'm not even sure what to call it necessarily. I would say it gives you even less control than the custodial, and that is the kind of wallet service that PayPal, Robinhood, Square has. And that is, you can buy cryptocurrency and you can buy Bitcoin and you can sell Bitcoin. You can't move it out of that wallet at all. With a custodial wallet, you could at least move, if you use Coinbase, you could move that money. You could take that money off of Coinbase, take those Bitcoins off of Coinbase and move them to a non-custodial wallet if you want. With something like PayPal, Robinhood, etc., you cannot move that money at all. It sits with Robinhood or it sits with PayPal. It either goes up in value or goes down in value. You can buy it, you can sell it, you can't move it. So that gives you even less control over those funds than a custodial wallet. I mean, not financial advice, but I would not recommend using those. If you really want exposure to the full power and breadth of what Bitcoin can do, then I would use either the custodial or the non-custodial. I would not recommend just buying it and leaving it with PayPal, unless you're simply interested in buying it as an investment vehicle and you don't plan on using anything, and you're not interested in any way in the technology. Then maybe it would work for you. I'm happy to do more of these videos if people find them useful. Let me know. Put a comment down below. Let me know how. Let me know if I could what I can talk about. I definitely want to talk about the blockchain because that's instrumental to why the Bitcoin network is why I think it's valuable and why I would argue it's valuable. But if there's any other topics that you think you want to hear about, other cryptocurrencies, you want a 101 on other cryptocurrencies, my knowledge on that is limited. I mean, I have some knowledge on Ethereum and some other coins, but I'm by no means an expert on any of those. Not that I'm an expert on Bitcoin either, but yeah, let me know. I love this stuff, so I'm happy to keep making videos if there are people who are willing to watch them. Okay, thanks. Have a good day, everybody.